Greetings.
Hi.
Hi.
This evening, we're going to start with talking about NXIVM, which was a cult that was very recently exposed as doing sex trafficking, money laundering, all kinds of things. So we're going to introduce ourselves, and then we're going to dive right in. So I'll get started. My name's Leza. We agreed to do our astrological signs. So I'm a sun sign Capricorn, rising Libra, and my moon is in Pisces. I've been a solitary practitioner for over 15 years.
I'm Deirdre. I'm a Cancer sun, Sagittarius rising, and my moon's in Virgo. I've been a solitary practitioner for about 20 years.
I'm Brent, and I'm a Leo sun, Leo moon, Scorpio rising, and I have been practicing witchcraft for 2 years, but I've been doing magic all my life.
Apologies. Okay. All right, so we all watched The Vow as preparation. We did other research as well, but I thought it'd be good if we had one central body of work to contextualize and really just look at. So let's just start with your initial reactions upon watching the show, aside from, the magic and the cult aspects that we'll dive into.
When I started watching The Vow, like the first few episodes, I was getting like a stomach ache just because it was making me so upset. But I kept watching because I had to know what happened despite having, read about it online. But hearing these people tell their own stories was really engaging. So I kept going. And once I kind of got like, okay, I know the basics of like why this is upsetting, and then I could kind of engage with it more without feeling physically ill.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it was just, I had the same kind of reaction. Not so much, I mean, like, of course I was disturbed and disgusted, but also just because it's one of those things where I was watching it and I just recognized so much of myself and so many people, because I mean, life is hard and there's so many things that we all go through, all these traumas and all this conditioning that we have. And, just to know that these people had such hope that they were going to, be cured and, experience joy forever. It was just so heartbreaking, but really, really like captivating. It just, yeah, there's just so many layers to it is the first thing that I noticed. Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. I've noticed a lot of times things that make other people feel a certain way, it'll make me feel the exact opposite. So like, I'll watch House of Living Corpses and like, it'll totally like make my day,
Mm-hmm.
The ending of Clockwork Orange, I'm like, yes, show them, they can't change you. Watching the NXIVM thing, like, I mean, there's a lot of sadness and things like that. Just the tragedy, like I think that's the main thing that hit me was like, oh my God, this is just like tragic from end to end, every which end you look at it. But when they describe like some of the exercises and stuff and some of the principles, as a practicing witch and student of avid student of Carl Jung, I was like, yeah, like, I need to quiet down my reactive mind, which is another Scientology term and thing that it parallels with.
Yeah.
Or emotional stretching feels pretty good. Like I was like, that sounds cool. And then I did it. I was like, whoa, that does feel amazing. Like, and I had a whole week after watching like the first episode where I felt like better than I'd felt in a while, honestly. Like I felt like my head was clear. I felt like I was like understanding why I was doing things. I wasn't wasting time on the various obsessive thoughts I tend to spend time on. So I was like, you know, that's the bigger tragedy, even that these are actually, some might be useful techniques that can help people's lives, and they sort of use those as bait. And then once they've got their loyalty, it's like a Venus flytrap. Like,
exactly. I mean, they're using those ways of regulating those kind of things to basically they're planning ahead, because they're like, oh, well, there's going to be a reaction to this later, but we'll take care of that now, so you're not going to scream when we like brand you or whatever, you know, like
right.
yeah,
like there's numbing, there's conditioning, and then it becomes numbing.
Yeah, well, because they're breaking them down, and then it's I mean, I feel exactly the same way about, because I mean, you watch that, and if you have any kind of background with any of this like kind of work or whatever, like, you know, deconditioning or whatever you want to call it, whether from a magic background, a psychological background, you know that there's something there. That there's you know, I was watching, I was like, well, I was like, that's really interesting, because that is true.
Yeah, I'm like,
but also you know,
when people wouldn't, you know, become involved in any of these kinds of cults if there wasn't some kind of bait that worked for them. So it, you know, makes sense, and you can have sympathy or empathy, you know, but well, as you said, Lisa, it's the Venus flytrap of once they're hooked in by something that they find effective, it goes real dark.
Yeah, real quick.
Yeah, I mean, it reminded me, I've always been, like, I'm probably not as obsessed, I'm actually not as obsessed with cults as my husband is. He is really obsessed with cults. I'm kind of more into, I guess, people that do bad things in general. I'm just very fascinated by, like, trying to understand, like, how their mind works, like, how much of it is an impulse, how much of it is pre-calculated, how they live with themselves. I don't know. It's the stuff I spend time thinking about. And this reminds me a lot of the Manson family, in that there is a charismatic leader at the top who uses sex to control, especially the women. You know, in his time, what he would offer was, I guess, a good time and a feeling of family. You know, for them, he used acid a lot, for example. Like, he would dose his followers, but not dose himself. And they thought he was also tripping with them, but he wasn't. And he would just, like, then use those times to kind of set some partograms in motion that he would, like, just keep pushing them further and further until they could, like, think nothing about killing somebody. So it was weirdly calculated. Like, Manson doesn't seem that calculated. He just seems like kind of a crazy pants fuck up. But I mean, he was pretty calculating about some things, you know. But there were no drugs with NXIVM. There was none of that. So this was like the cult of the, I want to say the cult of the 80s, but I guess it was the 90s. It started in 98.
98.
Yeah. So, you know, end of the 90s, beginning of the 2000s. That's so crazy to think about. Like,
well, I mean, there's the thing that's just really interesting to me about that is, there's definitely elements of Manson, there's elements of Scientology, which we'll definitely get into. There's, I mean, multi-level marketing, like so many things going on, and it's just kind of like a perfect storm. And it just, to me, it just seems like Keith Raniere just studied. Like, I mean, I think he is an intelligent man. Like, let's be honest.
Yeah, no, he's not an idiot. That's for sure. No. He's definitely not as smart as he.
Oh no. I mean, not like, obviously, like, not as an emotionally intelligent, which is, you know, a lot of people really, you know.
Well, not even like intelligent. I don't think, like.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's more just, I mean,
like you said he was a concert pianist, but you only see him playing that one song.
right, exactly. It's really just
that one song.
Yeah, it's just it really just shows you too how much like charisma can get you, to be honest.
And
like
that's the other weird thing is he's not even that charismatic.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, he's like this tiny little man.
I
Like,
would never do him ever. Like,
no, thank you. No.
But I wonder how much of it is like in whatever his in-person energy is like, because I agree, like watching him on video, I'm like, he just kind of seems like a guy, like.
Yeah.
He builds himself up. That's the thing. It's like he builds himself up in your head first. He's like, oh, I'm all these things, you know. Of course, that doesn't account for the first people he lures, but with them, you know, he builds himself up in person. He's like, oh, I'm so smart, blah, 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 blah. And they're like, oh my God, you're so smart. Wow, that's
yeah.
Or whatever. Yeah, and like one of his lures was that he was like a judo champion at age 11. But what's funny about that is, well, if he was a judo champion at age 11, like that was a pretty long time ago for you.
So who cares? Like what? What a weird thing to brag about.
It's like when people put like the awards they're nominated for on their books, like
yeah.
Especially if it's not a big award, like nobody knows about it. It's like
yeah.
Yeah. So we've agreed it's a weird thing. It definitely mirrored other kinds of cults. It's weird because it's like there's this BDSM element too. So it's like very sexual. And obviously that was not clear at first. At first it was more about, I guess, taking people's money or whatever.
Right.
Sorry, I'm surrounded by grandfather clocks and they all just
Very spooky. I like it.
Can you hear it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, another thing that was at least mentioned in the new show Seduced about India Oxenberg is that it was implied, at least to some people, that he lived kind of a monastic life, like that he wasn't sleeping with anyone, which clearly was apparently not the case like at any point in NXIVM's history, which is sort of puzzling.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good front to have.
Yeah, because like, oh, if I decide to have sex with you, then it's because you're that special to me.
Yeah, I mean, it'll make
and I'll break my vow of celibacy.
Like getting to like fuck a priest, like that's hot.
Yeah, I mean,
hot priest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that threw me all off. The clock.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, so I think at this point, why don't we try doing the emotional stretching? Okay, so
I haven't done this yet. I'm nervous.
I'm going to mind control you.
That's
okay. You, Leza.
Followers, beware. Okay. All right, so let's try to get our minds to a semi-rested state. Let's just count back from 5. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. We will begin by picturing the most dreadful thing that could happen to us. Doesn't have to be picturing an exact thing, but just feel how you would feel if you lost everything. You lost everybody you loved. You lost all your possessions. Something really terrible happened. Somebody you loved died. Something like that. Just, oh shit. Scared. Somebody yelling at you. Feel your heart race. Now we're going to stretch to the highest possible joy, bliss, excitement, surprise party, seeing your friends, good news, hugging someone you love, puppy. Feel that soothing wave wash over you. You're okay. Everything's going to be okay. You're safe. Now we're going to plunge back down to the darkness, back down to the worst feeling ever. You're in the dungeon of your psyche. There's no way out. You're trapped and insane. There's no way out. Everybody hates you. Everybody thinks you're fake. Everything hurts, especially your heart. Now we're going to swing it back up to joy, excitement, celebration, thankfulness. Feeling blessed, feeling safe, feeling powerful, confident, strong. You know what's going on. You know everything. You understand everything. You got this. All right, I'm going to stop it there because it's going to get a little bit weird, I think, if we keep going.
Wow.
I already feel pretty weird.
Yeah, that was a lot, to be honest.
Oh.
I mean, I felt like such tension. Like I felt it in my body when I was like in the dark or whatever you want to call it. Like that was a lot. That was crazy.
My heart is still racing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like kind of jumpy, like I just like ran away from somebody who's like chasing me or something.
Right.
Like my heart's racing. Like it raced the first time I went down. That's why I said like you feel your heart racing because I really felt it.
Yeah.
And then when I went back to the first high note, it slowed down and then it started racing again.
Yeah.
And it just like, so each time like it kept, so now I feel like palpitations or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I need to breathe more.
Yeah, right. It's one of those things where you just kind of realize like how you hold fear in your body and like how fear feels, you know?
Yeah.
And for me at least, in my personal experience, fear like that can be a really good compass about like what you need to work on or like what like yeah, because really, I mean, fear can be a tool, you know, but like in a way that just points you to, I mean, it's very like Nine of Swords, you know, like in the tarot, like the fear is essentially, you know, like what you are imagining, you know, and not necessarily just your experience, because we're safe, we're here.
But we made ourselves feel scared.
Yeah.
And that felt very real. I mean, that's the weird thing about feelings. Like feelings are real, but they're not.
Yeah.
As somebody who suffers from mental illness, like that is one of the big things that I have had to realize. And then once realizing, it's enabled me to control myself more, because I know that I am going to have like an unreasonable panic reaction or an unreasonable rage reaction to something that does not warrant it at all.
Yeah.
And I don't know in the moment, it'll just feel like the most natural thing. And you're like, well, this is what I'm feeling. Isn't this real? But it's not. I mean, it's real in that you are really feeling that.
Yeah.
But it's not real in that it's not actually based in reality. It's based on your own shit.
Yeah, it's real, but it's not true, as I think like Lindsay Mack says. Like it's, and that was a game changer for me too, because I too have been, suffered from lots of stuff. But but yeah, I mean, to be able, that's why meditation and things like that can be really helpful,
Right.
because you can observe those things and understand that, oh, you know, or, you know, if a feeling comes up, you can let that pass through you, because a feeling or a thought can be gone in a second. Yeah. Other times it can just stick around, stay in that loop. If you let it get stuck in that loop, then, you know, like that's how conditioning works, you know, right. Like, yeah. So, but yeah, that was intense.
Yeah, it's kind of brutal. But yeah. I can see how it would be a really effective lure for any kind of program, you know, because it's something that, well, what's interesting to me is that it's the kind of exercise that allows you to feel your own power, because you know that it's your mind doing these things. You know, obviously Leza is guiding what we're doing, but it's our brain showing us the visions of whatever is bringing us the most fear and joy. So, but it's interesting to me that that then doesn't automatically translate for people, or maybe, I mean, I don't know, but into like, this is something I can do for myself, like, continuing, I don't know, but I don't know.
I think it's probably something where it was kind of like, well, we're going to give you these tools, but this is just the start.
Yeah.
You know, like we're gonna be, I almost said just the tip, I know. But but it's yeah, because it is kind of just kind of that, like those breadcrumbs, like come here, like we're gonna a little bit more, we're gonna do a little bit, oh now you're branded. Like, I mean, I'm sorry. Like, and what's crazy about all this is like, we can laugh about it and stuff like that, but Jesus, the stuff that those people went through is absolutely horrific. And I don't want to minimize like what's been going on, but also just like the bombacity and the fucking like the nerve of like Keith Raniere to
I know the balls. I was just make a balls joke, and now
I mean,
awkward. I was gonna say that was just the tip, but till Raniere is balls deep in it.
But yeah, I mean, like exercises like that are powerful because they make you realize how important how much powerful your mind is.
Yeah, and that's where, you know, it starts to overlap into, you know, what we are going to talk about.
Yeah.
Stuff we already talked about, which is how does it connect with magic? Like why are three witches so fascinated with NXIVM and other cults? Like what is it about these things that is frustrating? Like for me, when I first started to see about Scientology, I actually wasn't that interested, but my husband was like obsessed with Scientology for many years. Now NXIVM came along, so finally he's not going to bed to Scientology documentaries every night. I'm not kidding. But watching all those, I was like, you know, I'd hear about certain techniques they had and things like that, and I was like, well, that sounds interesting. You know, these principles are interesting because they have to do with like the reactive mind, like, you know, calming down, not being so reactive, which that's a huge thing that like, honestly, everybody needs to do that like yesterday.
Yeah, the world needs that. Like
it's why we are like where we are right now. It's
correct.
That. So I was like, that's so weird. And Hubbard actually did know Crowley and Parsons.
Yeah, they studied together for quite some time. And then he later said, oh, I infiltrated a black magic group.
Yeah, like sure.
Yeah.
That's what
so it's not that strange that he would implement magical principles into the workings of Scientology. he was somebody with so much imagination. I mean, he was a writer, and he was writing all these crazy sci-fi stories and coming up with all this. He was just come up with this crazy shit for a living. So it wasn't very hard to mix magical principles with other things. That also had the multi-level marketing scheme thing going for it, and preying on people who want to actually do good in the world, who want to help heal the world.
Yeah. Oh, that was the other thing too that I don't that is that with NXIVM, they literally were like, you know, like, we're going to save the world. Because I mean, of course it was about empowering, but it is also about like awakening that consciousness, you know, raising the consciousness so that we can essentially save the planet, because we know it's in danger.
Right.
And everybody feels that psychically. I think we all feel that we're like at a precipice, you know. And so they were like, this is something that I can do and it will help. And I mean, I think that's almost like the most egregious of it all, you know. It's just like they did go in like with good intentions.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the people were really good, you know, and really smart. Yeah. You know, Mark Vicente, I think, I feel super bad for him. I feel like, you know, I feel like he's still like sitting with all this shit and trying to unscramble his brain. Because like, how do you live with yourself when you know you are like, and you can tell he's like such a good guy. Like, obviously I don't know him personally, but
right,
from what I've seen, I get the impression he's like a really genuinely like sweet guy. Yeah. You know, for somebody like that who's never done anybody harm, to realize that you were actually doing the people you loved harm, and were, you know, enabling the luring of more people into this harmful situation. That's just got to be so horrible.
Yeah. You could see it when he was watching those videos of himself, like with those women, even just like a very, like, I mean, I guess innocent exercise or whatever. But he was, or when he was talking about his wife having to sleep on the floor, he was just so upset about that. He was just like, I don't want to talk about that. I feel like a piece of shit. I know that was awful, and I don't know why I did it. So, yeah.
One thing he said that I've been thinking about that's related to, you know, magic is, and that I think this applies to both NXIVM and Scientology, is that these are organizations that are putting forth that it's science. And and I think in the first episode of The Vow, he says,
the tech.
He says, this isn't about howling at the moon and holding a crystal. Which
that
resonated with me, because I was like, but I want to howl at the moon.
Like, we are not the same people.
But it's so funny to me. I mean, it's really interesting, because it's like because I think part of the draw is that they're saying like, this is science, and for a lot of people, that's an indication that it's not something like
woo woo.
Yeah. Well, we said woo woo at the same time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's really funny to me when anybody ever says anything like that, because like when we talk about like NLP, like neuro-linguistic programming and things like that, like there's a lot of that stuff too, that they say something about, like they talk about the placebo effect. And to me, like the placebo effect is like one of the most single, like the biggest evidence that we have that magic is real. Because literally, I mean, people have like, you know, cure diseases and things like that, literally by just thinking that a sugar pill, whatever. But what's also funny to me too, is that science and magic, like those aren't that different. Let's be honest. Like, those are just two sides of this, like of the same coin, and it's just like what we call them. So, but it's just funny because a lot of people they're like, oh, they have like these qualms because it's magic or it's witchcraft, because they think that they're going to go to hell with it. But, you know, like, oh, by the way, you're still going to go to hell because it's science. Like when I say go to hell, I mean, I'm talking about you're going to live through hell with this shit. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the main frustration I have, and the main reason I wanted to do a show like this is because, I mean, doing it individually is just exhausting, trying to argue, trying to explain to skeptics what magic is and why it's real.
I find conversations like that so exhausting. Like, for me, it's just like, I'm just like not really interested. I'm like, if you think that what I do is weird, is like just
Cool.
like that's okay. I mean,
Yeah.
it's okay, you know.
Yeah. I gave up trying to explain myself with any of that stuff. I'll just be like, oh, this is what I do. And they're like, wait, what? I'm like, I mean, it works for me. I don't know. Like, it works for you. You can go to therapy. Like, I mean, believe me, not to knock therapy, of course. But I mean, all of these things are just tools. Magic is a tool, just like science is, just like therapy, like all those things, like they are tools. And it really is a matter, because it's not a matter of like, I don't think our discussion here is like whether this was white magic or black magic. No, like, I mean, like this is.
There is no, I mean, the only white and black is just in the intent of the user.
Exactly, because you can have a hammer and you can build a house for people who just lost their home, or you can bash somebody's head in.
Yeah, that's a great metaphor for magic, honestly.
And personally, I would rather build a house.
Yeah.
Or build a murder house.
Yeah, exactly.
Why not both?
Oh my God. But
I like the spectrum.
what I mean, I think that the reason why like conversations like this are so vital, and why, I mean, like the documentary, I just think it's a really timely thing for people to be watching right now, just because to realize how, I mean, we are all conditioned. I don't think, I mean, in my personal opinion, I don't think that's the debate. Like we have conditioning from the moment that we're born, from the, from society, from our parents, from the media, from all those things.
Yeah.
And what is so disheartening and so tragic to me is that the work that was being done and the empowerment that was being done, I think it's vital. Personally, I think that like we need, again, I kind of do agree and that they could like save the world if people did work like this.
Yeah.
But I mean, and the funny thing is that we've talked through all of this, we haven't even got to the sex cult part, like that part. But I mean, like it can go wrong so quickly. And also how important like intuition, your own discernment, like following your gut is, because you have to have common sense about these things. You can believe in howling at the moon and holding a crystal, but like if somebody's telling you to do that and then locking you up in a dungeon and you're like, well, but this really gives me something.
But I had a
yeah.
Well, it's like, oh gosh, Brent, you said this to me recently and I forget the phrasing. It's like, take what works for you.
Oh yeah, take what works for you and leave the rest.
Yeah,
like it is.
I mean, I think it's interesting. When we first talked, we did a dry run. We rehearsed this, believe it or not. This is how good we are after a second try. We talked about like, we introduced ourselves to each other, but like the long intros, like, how we practice and whatnot. And it was interesting. All of us kind of we were all different, but what we did have in common was that we kind of just have crafted our path, are taking what we want. I mean, basically how Keith Raniere designed his cult, like that's how we design our life. Like, we're like, oh, I like that. I'm like, I'll go through times where I'm like really feeling Ganesha, and Ganesha helps me a lot all of a sudden, and then it's gone and whatever. Like then I'm talking to Santa Muerte, and lately talking to a local ghost that got me into this old house. I'll talk to anybody. Like, I'm not going to limit my options spiritually. I think it's dumb to do that, honestly. But I also envy people that have that singular commitment where they're like, yes, this serves all my needs. Like, I'm jealous. Like, I wish there was something like that for me. There isn't, so I design my own.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's just so many things they're useful. It's the cult, it's the dynamics of the cult itself, of like making a group of people all live a certain way, and on top of that, making them pay you money for controlling their lives, I guess. I mean,
yeah.
Is that what it is? I mean, that's pretty much what it is. Like,
yeah. And I mean, and also just like, oh God, all the money that these people spent. Like, oh my God. Oh.
So much money. Like they didn't even have money. They were just like milking the Seagram's fortune.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And that was also really, and celebrities too. I mean, like that's what's also interesting to me is because they drew in specific people that they knew.
Like Allison Mack, you know, we were talking. So you used to watch Smallville? Did you watch Smallville? Yeah.
Yeah. I watched Smallville. So I watched Smallville, and what else was she in? There was like something else that Allison Mack was in that I don't know. I've actually kind of liked her as an actress for a second.
Yeah, I mean, she was good.
Yeah. And well, and that's the thing too, is like that was also what was so hard to watch too, because Allison like basically breaking down in front of Keith, like actually, well, I guess more accurately it would be Keith breaking her down and like right there, was just so hard to watch because she just, you know, you could just tell that she had issues and stuff like that. I mean, she was a child star, so of course she probably is going to have issues. But like, what was the thing? Oh, she was talking about art, and he basically told her that, oh, well, art doesn't do anything for you. That's just you.
Oh yeah.
I was like,
I mean, you're not doing it right. If it's not doing anything for you, you're not doing it right.
Yeah, exactly. I think that art is vitally important. That's the other
thing. That was very interesting. Yeah, that is very interesting because for people, I mean, such as ourselves, another thing we all have in common is that we're all artists. We do something artistic. We write. We all write. And you know, talk to any artist, and they will tell you that, you know, it might have even saved their life. You know, it is that crucial. It's crucial to the daily functioning of ourselves. Maybe not making art every day, but always like having something in the works, planning something, like doing something with what we have inside, because if we don't have anything to put it into, it just like putrefies inside us.
Yeah.
It's like our psychological cleaning mechanism. So to take that away from somebody, like then they're dependent on you completely for feeling good.
Which is why she became like such a shell, because like she wasn't really doing what she loved. I mean, well, basically he told her like, oh, you love this now.
I mean, she's kind of acting all the time. In the case of actors, they were still working. They were working very hard.
Yeah, definitely.
That's part of the job. A good actor and a good liar is, you know, if you believe it, like if you believe it, you know.
Yeah. Well, that's also interesting too. The fact that the connection between Scientology and NXIVM is the celebrities, because I feel like there's so much magic too in acting itself. It's like emptying yourself of your ego and letting whatever you're trying to invoke. I mean, it's like, I mean, that's what word am I looking for? It's like shamanistic almost, you know, like literally drawing. Sure. Yeah, because rather than just drawing in, because I mean,
not like pretending, like you are actually acting, like going full method, like you're gonna be feeling everything.
Yeah.
It has to feel real to make it look real. And sometimes if you stay in a role for too long, you can get stuck.
Yeah. And also, I mean,
in there.
like one of the easiest, I mean, pretending to be something is a really quick way to become something, to be, you know, like,
we're not as like solid as we think we are, you know. We are a collection of mannerisms. I remember when I was younger, I was like obsessed with Madonna. Like Madonna was my whole world from like 8 to 12, or maybe ish. And I would like watch her and study her, and then I'd like look at myself in the mirror and like practice for my interviews for when I'd be famous. And and I would act like Madonna. So like if you watch me now, like the way I'm acting, like these are the remnants of that. Like I literally crafted my persona. I can't get out of it. Like I mean, I designed it for myself, so I'm good with it. But
I mean, there are worse things to, you know, like imitate. You know, like Madonna's great.
The top.
Yeah.
Actually, speaking of Madonna, side note, she's been like posting all these videos on Instagram where she's like hanging out with Diablo Cody.
Really?
I think they're writing something together.
Oh.
That's
I'm
really exciting. That
in.
gets
So should we, that's, I mean, talk about a dead segue, sorry. No, but should we talk about, I mean, the actual like DOS?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
oh my God. Like that is, because that's what's so crazy is like you have to get through all of this stuff
right.
because all the cult stuff was absolutely vital to that.
Yeah, just setting up a situation where you can do that kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean,
Like, I think one thing the show, The Vow, did a good job of was that kind of lead up, because it allows you to have more empathy when you really see how much was happening before any woman's like indoctrination into DOS, that she would be able to take those steps, and even the steps to enter that society is like very secretive at the beginning. So it's this matter of degrees.
I mean, they don't even tell you what they're actually going to do. Like, they said it was a tattoo, which it's not.
yeah.
A brand is quite different than a tattoo. Quite different.
And they also said that it was like the symbols of the elements.
Oh yeah, like there's like
so this is water and this is air.
Oh
like
God.
like oh, I would be so mad. Like, are you serious?
I mean, for real. Like, I think one of my favorite moments of The Vow was it's towards the end. What's her name? Sarah
Edmondson.
Yeah, so she's putting like that scar fade cream.
Oh.
She's like putting it on her thing. She's like, when you get your sex cult brand name, like you gotta, like, she's like joking about it, but it's like so fucked up. Like
the,
oh my
the
God.
only way you could deal with that is to make light of it, to be honest.
I would act the same way. I would
like,
totally
I would be too, absolutely. Like, that's what was interesting. I mean, I really liked Sarah.
I'm like, I hope her acting career, I hope she like starts being in movies again, because I'm like,
that would be really cool.
Yeah.
I would love that.
I liked her energy a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't believe her courage. I was just like flabbergasted.
Yeah.
Well, her and Bonnie. Bonnie, I think, is really an important message about following your gut. Like, because she was in there and she was like, okay, well, it changed my life. I felt great for a while, but then stuff started, like, this doesn't feel right. Something in me tells me this is wrong. And they said, oh, that's just your fear talking. Or that's, what was the thing? Your viscera, right? Yeah, like that's just your viscera responding to whatever. And, you know, I have heard like languaging that is basically like, you know, if you feel fear, that can be just contraction and you have to move through that. That's valid. But the whole thing that, you know, with that is that you do have to just listen to your, you know, your gut, your intuition, your soul, your true self, whatever, that's under all that conditioning and all that.
It's hard in situations like that. I mean, it's
really
hard.
I mean, because she left basically on that like feeling, and because they told her, oh no, that's not valid. You're just a coward. You're just weak.
But then once again, she had to go in and check with herself, like, no, it still doesn't make sense.
Yeah, she's like, is that true? Like, have you guys ever heard of the work of Byron Katie?
No.
I've heard of it, but I've never done it.
So she's Byron Katie. Yeah. So it's basically just, it's like 4 questions. Like, is it true? Well, I don't know them off the top of my head, but basically it's just asking yourself. It's like what do you call that? Like an interrogation of the situation. Yeah. And it's just thinking critically is pretty much what it comes down to. But that's really important. It's really important to think critically if you're going to do work like this. Yeah. Because the thing is that you can deprogram yourself. It is possible to do those things and like to reach, not you know, whatever you want to call it, enlightenment, whatever. But like that is possible to do. But you have to realize that once that's done, you have to replace it with something. Like you have to, like, if you're going to remove those limiting beliefs, you're going to have to replace that with like you know, instead of like, I hate myself, I approve of myself, you know? But like in their case, they broke them down and then just put in all these things that served him, you know? It's just, I mean, they always talk about like, if you have like a, what is it? Like a Kundalini, right? Like a Kundalini experience, that you're going to be really susceptible to people after that, because essentially like we can't just be a blank slate. Like we're like sponges. We have to absorb shit. And so when you're in situations like that, you really need to like have an intention, you know, or else somebody's going to take advantage of you.
Right.
Yeah. Man, this is bringing back memories.
Same.
Damn. Yeah. I think what's interesting, how it's almost like, I feel like we're mostly talking about like sets of techniques, and those are gonna apply like in any sphere. So as as witches, like each of us, I'm sure we have like our just certain things we do that we know work, and they're just like what we do when we need certain things to get done, basically, you know?
Yeah.
Instinctive.
I mean, and the same things that we're talking about with cults could definitely apply to covens. You know, like I'm a solitary practitioner.
I am sure there's covens that are a lot like cults. I mean,
Oh, definitely.
I've never been part of a coven. I've always wished I could be, but like I'm kind of glad I never have been.
Kind of same. Yeah.
What's always well, I don't mean this in a personal sense, but I remember when I was like in middle school and I was first kind of looking at, you know, contemporary pagan literature, I remember picking up a book that it was like telling you these specific steps, and it was like, okay, if you do all this, now you can call yourself a witch. And that really, I just remember the feeling of how it put me off so much, and I was like, I don't like that. But because I was so young that I was like, maybe they're right, and like I didn't do the things that were in the book, and I'm still a witch, so
fuck gatekeeping. I hate it. Like, no.
I mean, it's
no.
in everything. It's in the churches too.
Oh yeah.
Like, you know, private yacht clubs, I'm sure there's like a whole like whatever you have to do, or you know, you got to be white or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
And I understand the appeal of having like concrete rules. Like, I don't get it. Like, I totally get it. Like, sometimes it's nice to just have someone be like, this is what you have to do, and then you're good. You're doing the good thing.
Yeah.
I think what's a lot more effective is like what the Masons have, where it's like, I mean, I don't know that much about being a Mason besides stuff I've watched, but it doesn't seem like it's like in your life that much. It's more like a brotherhood that you have where you can like help each other out. So you're going to have people who are in the higher ups who are high up in society, so they can help each other out. You know, it's like it's a fraternity.
Yeah.
That's actually a lot more effective, because then like everybody can like do what they want, but you've got the hookup, you know, like you've got your people who've got your back.
Well, and the thing about cults too is that like community is really important. I mean, and especially again too when you're doing work like this, it is really important.
You have to do that. Like you have to jump through all these hoops to have this with friends. Like it's not worth it.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's so heartbreaking to see, like when you watch the people who've gotten out of NXIVM being interviewed, a lot of them say that a big part of the lure was the community, and like they were meeting these cool people who seemed really wonderful. And
well, I think that's where people go to church too. It's the community of their church, like, you know,
well,
it's lonely.
I mean, I think too that is what like this pandemic has shown us about how important community is. And so, you know, think about how many more people have come together because of this, actually, you know, like you know, it's
I
just
mean,
one
I'm
of
not really doing this because of that. Like,
yeah.
We'd be doing a Zoom show if we weren't in this like weird, like global situation.
but we're not in the same places, so this would be smart to do even if the world wasn't.
Yeah, we'd still be doing a Zoom show.
Exactly. But I mean, I'm trying to think, I'm trying to think if I even knew about Zoom before the pandemic.
I didn't.
I know that
No.
I didn't like Skype, but I didn't know like what Zoom was.
I don't think I'd ever used Zoom. Yeah, I used Skype or, you know, FaceTime, but I don't think I'd ever used Zoom before.
Yeah, I hadn't used Zoom before.
Yeah.
Zoom created COVID.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just, again, I do think it's just, I just think it's really timely. I think it, like, this showed up at like the right time, like this documentary and everything like that, because for people, especially like who have been like stuck in their house for, you know, like 7 months or whatever, I guarantee you that they thought about so many of those things that these people are going through, you know, like about their self-worth and whatever. Because I mean, when you can't really do anything, you go within, and that can be pretty dark for some people.
It can be, yeah. Especially if they don't like do the work.
Yeah, if you're not, I mean, if God, yeah, because like that's the thing too about like with that exercise, like I feel like we're all pretty grounded, you know what I mean? But for somebody who doesn't do this at all, and if they felt the way that we felt, like that is a lot. Like
yeah, it might set you in new and wild directions. Like you don't know when you're in a suggestible state.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
What's been interesting to me too about all this is just I always think about it, just how easy it is to control people. I mean, it's astoundingly easy once you know the techniques. Anybody can do it. I mean, you do need a certain amount of personal charisma, or to have somebody who is recruiting who has charisma.
Yeah.
But aside from that, it's just a simple set of techniques that it's just so easy. It's so easy because people want to belong so bad, and they want to find, you know, the answer to how to stop being in pain and stop being so confused. And, you know, they don't want to hear that it never stops. You just have to like deal with it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there are tools, but
there's tools, but it's still there. Like the youngness is not going away.
Exactly. I mean, that's part of being human, you know? Like, I mean, yeah, exactly. Like, you're never going to feel, like, the whole thing is really just about, like, I don't even know what word I'm looking for. Like, what I'm even trying to say. Basically, like, you know, like, whatever you're looking for out there, like, you are it, really, is what it comes down to, you know, like
I mean, the whole obsession with ancient aliens too, like that's like
oh nice.
My cool candle.
Oh nice, that's awesome.
It's beeswax.
Oh, that's so cool. Is that carved?
What?
Is that carved?
Yeah.
Oh, how cool. That is rad.
But yeah, I mean, it's as within, so without, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think especially with like Leza, you were talking about how you were a fan. I probably like that would be not enough word. Jung is what I'm trying to say, and about you know, like making the unconscious conscious, making the unconscious conscious.
Right.
That I really do think that that's like the answer.
Right.
To be honest, you know, like you
and
need to deal
terms too, individuation.
Yeah.
You know, that's a Jungian term.
Yeah, and you need to. I mean, you need to deal with your shit, and you know, there these people, they know that. Like Keith Raniere knew that, and he like I actually looked up his birth chart, and so let's see. A Sun-Pluto conjunction and a tough-minded trine to Saturn and a sextile to Neptune, and which can lean towards megalomania. And he also has basically like this, it's domination for pleasure.
Oh,
So it's like
God.
it's like the what do you want, low vibration of the of those aspects, you know,
Yeah.
like literally all the again, like quote unquote the dark side, because you know all those things, because if you harness those things, like again, like it just is so heartbreaking, because if Keith Raniere really wanted to help the world, maybe he could. I don't know.
Could have done
Yeah.
something positive. I mean,
Yeah.
he was definitely good at organizing people and getting them to rally behind him. Like if he had actually intended this as an actual humanitarian effort, he would have done it. But you know, he was more ego driven. So
Yeah. I mean, it is all ego. Like he had the charisma to see him through, because a lot of sometimes when people work from ego like that, you don't get anywhere.
yeah.
But he was able to bullshit.
And it's like till you get caught, you know?
Yeah, till you get caught. I mean, obviously he didn't get away with it, you know.
I mean, he could have almost done it.
He
I
could
mean,
have.
if he had honestly not targeted, you know, people that were famous, he would
Right.
have gotten away with it, because nobody would give a shit about them.
Yeah.
When also the story really didn't break until Me Too, even though
It helped a lot. It helped a lot. It really, the momentum was powerful.
which is good, because
The other documentary that came out during this COVID thing was, you know, the Epstein one. You know, that was another big thing of like,
Mhm.
you know, a similar situation of like a white man controlling women, you know, to do what he wants. And he was extremely effective at it. I mean, he had money helps, of course, but he basically controlled everybody through blackmail. So
Yeah. Well, I mean,
his ass is covered from multiple directions.
exactly. Well, from what I hear, that's how they control people in Scientology too.
Yes, I mean,
Yeah.
that's the first, what's it called? Is it EM? The first Scientology interview you have?
Yeah, what is it? Yeah, what is it? Editing or
What?
the things, not
Yeah,
editing.
E-meter. You get a reading with the E-meter.
Yeah, your husband would know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
um,
but
then they get their information, and it was the same with DOS, where they had to, and that was so weird. Like they do like fake collateral, like you say you did things you actually didn't even like do, and that's your
yeah,
collateral.
And then someone was talking about how she like talked a bunch of shit about like her family, but stuff that wasn't true.
Yeah.
And it was
Yeah.
recording of it.
The thing with
That it just would be hurtful. It's about
yeah.
you know.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, like, imagine having to go to like your husband and be like, honey, I told them that you beat our son because I wanted to get branded and be a sex slave.
Yeah,
Like,
so good.
it's just, I mean, the whole thing with the just DOS was just there's just so many like, really, but the thing is too that again, that's why it's important with that documentary is that they tell you how NXIVM operated, and then that, because you get why he did it, like you get why he had them like what was the thing, like, oh god, the SOP, the men's society, the society of protectors, like he set that up specifically so that he could have the women one, and then also to say that you know, like, you don't know how hard little boys have it,
Right.
and you know, like stuff like that. And so like he made them feel guilty about like, I don't even know, trying to be a person, more or less. Like, ugh.
I thought that element of it was so, because he was saying, you know, like little girls get treated like princesses and little boys get treated like nothing. And I'm just like, what universe are you living in?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think there is some truth to it. I think
Yeah.
You know, the genders are very much conditioned, as we were saying earlier. You know, boys are kind of conditioned to be tough. They're not supposed to cry. They're not supposed to show any vulnerability. So if little boys cry, they're treated like shit by their parents. They're made to feel ashamed, and they're told to shut up and stop acting like a damn girl.
Right.
And girls can cry. Girls can show fragility. Girls are like protected. Girls are a commodity. We are the breeders, still,
Right.
so we have to be protected, but we are also imprisoned.
Right.
Like, boys are allowed a lot more freedom early on. They're allowed to, go out or whatever. And girls, it's
Right.
like all this red tape to like let your dad go out when you're 16 because it pictures you getting gang banged no matter what you do.
Right.
But yeah, so some of that is true. Like some of that is actually true. But
toxic masculinity harms everyone, not just
yes.
women.
Yeah, it harms men more than women, honestly. Toxic masculinity is the most toxic to men.
Yeah.
Because it is hurting them inside, like from the beginning. So they can't get rid of it. It's like in their head. Like it doesn't go away. They can recondition themselves. They can reprogram their behavior, but it's always going to be the first impulse is always going to be, oh, why is she acting like that? Women are so crazy, they're just crazy. You just gotta deal with them.
I mean, with anything with Keith Raniere is that he took a grain of truth.
Yeah.
And like, and that's with anything, and then he perverted it.
Right.
So he used that to say like, oh, well, they were treated like shit as children, so they're gonna treat you like shit now.
That's not a solution. Like
that's not a solution. That like
they have to deal with like their parents that fucked up raising them. Like that's not their job. Like go to therapy. Like
yeah, right. Like I mean, oh god, so much of this probably could. Well, I would say that, but then what's her name? Nancy, right, was a therapist.
Yeah.
She understood like the power of.
I mean, honestly, I feel like she's the one that made it all work more than Keith did. Like, she was the one they were watching in the videos.
Yeah. Well, I think, and it's so upsetting to see like a woman in a position of power because, of course. Well, I mean, not all women, but a lot of women like me, like I would be much more likely to trust a woman who seemed really powerful and,
of course,
and vouched for some guy.
You wouldn't think
extremely safe. I mean,
like,
absolutely.
Sex cult,
Right.
You wouldn't think that, And she probably wasn't even aware those were his plans at all. Right. Like
that's what I really want to know. Like, I want to know from her, like.
I doubt I don't think he might have not even known what his full plan was. His plan was probably just, we'll see what happens, Yeah,
exactly.
I'll probably get some pussy out of this. Like, he's a guy, he's thinking like a guy. Like,
yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, Nancy Salzman is like kind of the devil in my head. Like,
it was
super creepy.
Yeah, because it's just that smile and just like, oh, like, I mean, she was very mother-like to so many of those people,
Yeah.
Ugh.
And a mother to her own daughter who.
Oh God, yeah, that's.
Out to Keith Raniere.
Ugh.
Yeah, that part was upsetting.
Ugh. That's so annoying. Like, I hate that. Like, he strung her along for years, promising her a baby or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So depressing.
I don't know why you would want to have the baby with that man, but whatever.
So what do you think is going to happen now? Like, do you think, what is the next cult going to look like?
I mean, I think that we're looking at one right now. Like, I mean, it's that nationalist, isolationist kind of like, I mean, Trumpism. I mean, like, we want to talk about like cults, like absolutely, like that is, it's all just a class. They're denying reality and choosing to perceive another one. I think that if we keep on going down this path, like that's the next thing. Like it could be even more extreme though than, Fox News or whatever.
Yeah.
That would be that would be that, either that or we're going to see a lot of, just with like climate change and things like that, like as we near closer to the precipice, like people are just going to be really desperate, and people who have ill intentions know that. And so they're preparing essentially, you know, like and also keep in mind too that like with cults, you know, think about social media and things like that. Like you could be a leader of a cult and never have to even like.
Well, that might be the next thing. What if
Yeah.
it's just an online cult?
Oh, totally. I mean, absolutely. It could be like with, think about like.
I mean, that is so smart. Like, you literally spend zero money.
Yeah, just do it. I mean, have just a blank wall and just, you know, basically, you know, it's and it's scary because especially with, you just have to get that reach. So you just have to build, you know, okay.
I mean, I feel like I've seen it almost with like some YouTubers and
Oh
other
yeah,
personalities. Like they have a little cult. They grow their little cults.
yeah, like PewDiePie and stuff like that, and I mean a bunch.
Onision.
Yeah, yeah, but like it is, I mean, and the other thing too is that you could like, it could really mobilize those people to do really terrible things. So I mean, like if you want to think of a really dark, okay, maybe you should
like
manifesting this, but like
plan a bombing, like
yeah, or like
or a kidnapping.
Think Manson essentially.
I mean,
but,
imagine if Manson had had the internet.
Yeah, it's scary. It's scary. And that's why
had at least 3 times the amount of followers.
right. It's
imagine Manson on like MySpace, like doing his weird songs, like
exactly. Oh my god, pick for pick, pick comment for pick comment.
I actually like his music. I am a fan of Manson's music.
Is it? Yeah.
I think it's pre-grunge.
Yeah. I don't know if I've ever like actually really sat down and listened to it.
I'm gonna have to send you an album. There's actually, so they recorded an album. It's not Manson singing because he was in jail, but he wrote all the songs, and the family did it. So the girls are singing, Sadie Atkins and Squeaky Fromm are singing, and Clem something, he was singing, and he actually has a good voice, so it actually sound really good.
Interesting.
There's
I've always been obsessed with the Manson, like the whole thing. Like so I know that probably everybody says this, but if I remember right, my uncle basically, they lived down the street from Skull Ranch.
Oh shit.
And so they had like they came home one day and like his motorcycle that was normally like, you know, in the driveway, they had put it on the porch, and like the house was rearranged, and he, you know, they didn't really think anything of it. And then like, you know, it came out later that is what they did before they like hit houses.
Practicing.
Yeah. Like, oh my God. I got such chills when he told me that.
Because they did drive-bys before.
Yeah.
But they would just like stop at the houses just to like see if they could sneak in and out without being detected, and just go in, they dress all in black. They'd go and like just move shit around, like stupid shit, like Amelie, like how she goes and like pranks her neighbor, like that kind of shit. And then like that was practice.
Yeah.
Damn, that's spooky.
Oof.
But I mean, I think cults are really interesting, just to the like collective conscious and unconscious, because it's all things that we recognize that there are parts of us that don't feel whole or whatever, you know? And so like
there's a spiritual hunger, I think.
Yes.
You know, I think, you know, obviously I didn't live in the past, so I don't know, you know.
Well, I mean, you didn't.
I can only know what I maybe, I mean, I probably did, but
yeah, past lives.
But back then, like, there was something about it, and not just in one place, but in different places all over the world. There were shamanic practices, there were rituals, there were a lot of things that kind of kept human beings attuned with the cycles and more able to kind of navigate the world of the material plane and then the spiritual plane and do that.
Connect it. It's like that connection.
Well, they are connected, and that's the thing. But like, I feel like it used to probably be really obvious to most people, even
definitely.
really
Like
people. Just the basic magical principles of things. I mean, till recently, people in Scotland and stuff still think they see fairies when they go in the forest and stuff. Like, they're still seeing them, you know. But as the church took over, the Roman Catholic Church, paganism was wiped out, and in its place, religions all over, obviously Jerusalem and everywhere else, it became about this Godhead, a priest, a sacred scripture that everybody has to follow.
Exactly.
And that you cannot access on your own. You can't go to church in the forest, you go to church in the church. And
Correct.
Only the church is the church. And only your priest can translate the word of God to you. Like, you don't understand it. You have to have him explain it to you and tell you what it really means. So after those shifts started to happen, I feel like that was the beginning of our spiritual death. And people just, people that rejected the church then became like atheist or agnostic or whatever, leaving all, spiritual matters in the realm of, fairy tales and children's imagination, and religion is the opiate of the masses. I'm just not going to look at any of that or try to understand why people still seem to need it. I think we have arrived at a time where we are extremely spiritually bankrupt. So we are all just like starving in the desert, looking for something that's going to nourish our soul, because we don't know how to actually connect directly with the divine without the aid of a priest or somebody to guide us. So we're neutered. We're effectively spiritually neutered.
Right. And people, and the thing too about that is that with with our current society and with the conditioning and things like that we have, like, it's all built to feed the ego too, and you can't really, and like, you can't accomplish that wholeness within a system that only feeds the ego.
I mean, people are chasing money, the power of the world, that being a powerful person in this world means you have enough money that you can get yourself out of jail, basically. That kind of money. Then you're good. Then you're safe, and your fellow humans won't try to kill you or something, or steal your shit.
Right.
And the main goal is to acquire physical material wealth. And I think I actually had an interesting thought about gold about a week ago when I was trying to work on my mystical writings for the workshop I'm running next month that you're both in. Yay. Yeah. I got some visions from the creature I was trying to communicate with about gold. He was like, basically talking about how gold is the sort of essence of godhood because of its color, because of its malleability, its fluidity, yet its strength. You can make lasting, as you've seen, they've decorated churches with gold and everything. But it is a spiritual essence, hence alchemists, wanting to turn things into gold. It's really a metaphor for, turning the base dross of yourself or whatever into spiritual gold. But the people got confused and they thought the gold was the divine essence itself. So then that's why, like, our culture is the way it is, because of that.
Yeah.
I mean, look at Trump's gold toilet.
That's exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I would feel pretty on top of the world if I was shitting into a gold toilet.
No wonder he's delusional. but yeah,
But
I
yeah,
mean,
so there's a hunger, there's an emptiness. You know, we live in a empty sort of we live an empty existence when we are literally surrounded by everything. Everything we're missing is like it's right there.
it is. Yeah, I mean, like if you just think about how many people in like the past had spiritual experiences, you know, like it's because they weren't distracted. Like literally, I mean, that's really what like if you just sit in the dark and you pay attention or you know, like meditate, whatever, you're going to see and hear shit. Like that's just the way it is because it's there.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of letting down, because I think what the big problem here is that I don't want to say the ego is the enemy. In a way it is though, but I guess what I'm saying is we have built our egos up so much that it's the only thing that exists to us. Back in, you know, the olden days, whatever whatever, you know, like they knew about the legends of the place where they were in. They knew, you know, like the people that lived there before. They knew the practices of their ancestors, you know. And now we're just kind of like, well, I'll watch Netflix. You know, like there is more to life than just consumerism,
Right.
you know. And and capitalism. I think really because capitalism runs on broken hearts, and so they need us miserable so that they can control us.
Yeah.
And what's happening now is we are awakening to all the bullshit like that, and that's why.
I mean,
again,
have you noticed like ads have gotten smarter?
yeah. I mean, they're adapting, but you still have to discern that. Like I watched something last night, and they were kind of doing like, he was an ad executive, and he was like, you know, now more than ever, like in this unprecedented time, and then he realized, he was like, oh, those are just empty phrases. like I'm just throwing shit on there and still doing the exact same thing, you know. But
do you guys get targeted ads on Instagram, like
oh my god, yes,
stuff?
yes,
I do. And sometimes I'm like, ooh, maybe I do need this thing I don't need, you know, like I don't.
yeah, well, because
I'm like, ooh, this is a site I didn't know about. But a lot of the time I'm just like, okay, no, I don't need to buy things to be better about doing my practice. Sometimes
right.
I'm willing to because I want to, but it's just trying to be like aware of it.
No,
Right.
no.
I mean, sometimes you'll actually see something you really need it, and you're like, shit, the algorithm is working.
Right. Well, I mean, my whole thing is I'm like, okay, was that a synchronicity or was that target advertising? I don't know. Yeah. But yeah, but I mean, but that spiritual hunger that you're talking about, that's why bringing awareness to this kind of stuff is so important, because again, like as we get more desperate, we're going to have those systems pop up.
Yeah.
Like we're going to have those cults pop up, for lack of a better term.
Right.
And again, like it really is like what you need to do first. I mean, what people really need to do, I mean, instead of joining a cult, like just look within, man. Like it's really, because I mean, it's going to be scary, but it's worth it, you know? Like that's all I can say.
Yeah. I agree. I think we're at a good closing note. Forgot to set a timer, so I have no idea how long we've run.
Neither.
I think we started at like what? 3:35, so we're like an hour and a half, I think.
Yeah, something like that. That's okay.
Yeah.
It was the first show, so
yeah,
we'll find our
groove.
We'll have to discuss.
So stuff we'll talk about in the future. Why don't we tell people some of our topics that we will be talking about. One thing I'd like to talk about is we should do like a whole episode on like the Manson family and Kenneth Anger, because they're both fascinating subjects and with a fascinating overlap, and I can talk for days about that.
I have a Lucifer jacket from
Oh, I saw that. That is so cool.
Yeah, love it.
You still have it, I hope.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Nice. What are other topics we wanted to talk about? Anything?
Manifestation. I'm really excited to talk about that.
Yeah.
And the way, because I think that like just new thought in general is just really intriguing. Because again, just like this, there are value in practices like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think like, basically what we want to do is kind of do little deep dives into different weird things and kind of debunk in our own way. We're not going to debunk and say magic's not real because it definitely is. And,
right.
So we're going to try to, explore these things and also talk about magic in a hopefully less arcane way than most people do, so that it's easy to understand, because it's really not that complicated and it's really not that woo-woo weird or anything like and it's actually pretty easy to do.
Yeah.
So we can definitely share techniques and stuff. Another thing we were going to do was read through The Secret and talk about that. And,
yeah, I'm super into that.
Yeah.
So now we all have to read The Secret. I haven't actually read it.
I haven't either.
I've seen the movie.
Yeah, I saw the movie, I think.
They handed out The Secret at a multi-level marketing thing that I did. Like,
are you serious?
seriously. Yeah.
Well, one of the guys who's on The Secret, Michael Beckwith, is like he does. I did like an online meditation class with him, and
Oh, really?
Shit.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I like
We
him.
can talk about that.
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
I'll be curious to hear about that. Okay, so we'll have to talk about. We'll pick
The Dark Night of the Soul. I'm super excited to talk about that. That's like one of my favorite subjects ever. And the Catholicism thing. Like as a recovering Catholic, yeah, it's a big thing.
I like that. I feel like we have a nice balance of things.
Yeah.
So yeah, this has been really interesting. And if you guys haven't seen The Vow, I would highly recommend you watch it. It's very interesting, and not just in one way.